Kalimera, Kalispera, wherever time you're watching to another special edition of This Is Mappa. It's what we call the League of Farmers. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the last episode talking about the Maltese League. Now we're moving over to Latvia, and we've got Dmitrijs from the Latvian Football Podcast. Everything you need to know about Latvian football, this is your guy. Dmitrijs, welcome to the show, my guy. How you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, and Kalimera or Kalispera to you, and Tikanis. Hope all is well.
That is
you
excellent.
didn't tell me that the premise of the show is a farmers league. I may have not come.
Well, do you know what? This is something that we're doing because the Cypriot League, they call us the Farmers League. And any league that's not the Premier League or Serie A or the Bundesliga, they're Farmers League. So I figured, you know what? Let's have a bit of fun with it and show these people that our leagues are serious, because there have been some quality players that have come out of Cyprus and especially Latvia over the years. And we're not farmers leagues. If it weren't for our leagues, then these big leagues wouldn't have the players that they have. So they need to respect us. That's the way I see it.
Hey, I'll take our farmers league any day of the week over their league. So
for sure, 100%.
Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. And let's get to it. First of all, the Latvian Football Podcast. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so this is a new project we started last year, largely owing inspiration to our friends at the Estonian Football Podcast. In essence, I saw that there is interest in Estonian football. To me, it seemed only natural that, well, ours is so much better, so we should start a podcast as well. But more seriously, the idea was to, there just aren't any English-speaking resources covering the league at all. And having lived abroad for a while, this seemed like an especially, acute thing for me. That if I were not able to understand Latvian, how would I be able to follow this fantastic competition? And I wouldn't be. So this is where we came in. We started last season, covered the whole season, learned some tough lessons on how to podcast or how not to podcast, which is a process that's still ongoing. And so this year we're continuing the work. We're now almost in the run-up to the European season, which is a very exciting time because you get to connect with fans from abroad, such as yourself, we drew 2 Northern Irish teams and 2 Faroese teams this year. So we'll be connecting with those people, and it's just a fantastic community to be in and talk about things that we're passionate about, talk about football.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the Estonian Football Podcast, because Reese and Nathan, I've known them for quite a few years now, and they've done so well that I think that they're raising the bar. They're raising the bar for a lot of podcasts like ours. So, good luck to the boys, and they're doing a great job. So, Latvian football. Let me start with the basic question. Tell us about the league. How many teams? What is I'd say the title front, so to speak? How do teams win the league, relegation, etc., etc.?
Yeah. So Latvian top tier is called the Virsliga, which literally translates to the top league. It's been founded in 1927. It didn't go on during the occupation years, and it's contested by 10 teams. Most of its history, and including now. First team goes into the Champions League qualification round 1, and then the other 3 go into Conference League qualification round 1 as well, unless there's a cup winner. The bottom team gets relegated. The 9th place team plays a relegation playoff for second division, which is a little bit larger. It's 14 teams and includes, I think, 4 reserve squads of the Virsliga clubs. There are so a while back this was the least competitive league in Europe, and I think still Skonto Riga, which is a team that many people will have heard of, holds the record. I'm not sure if Bayern Munich has overtaken this by now or not, but it holds the record for most league titles consecutively won, or something to that effect, which is around 14. You basically have a team that's dominating the domestic competition for 15 years. That's not cool. Now, however, it's completely the other way around. It's one of the most competitive leagues in Europe. On top of that, it is the youngest top flight professional league in Europe as well. with I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think the average age being something in the region of 22 years or something like that. And one of our teams last season or 2 seasons ago was even the youngest pro team in Europe as well, which was FS Meta at only like 21 years of age, average age, which is crazy. So in essence, what this translates into is that it's a young, quality league. Lots of talent goes through here. It's all very exciting, and just really enjoy watching it.
Well, it sounds exciting. And you mentioned Skonto Riga. Now, my memory is a bit rubbish, but didn't they play Champions League? Did they play Inter Milan or someone from one of the big
They
leagues?
played Barcelona.
Barcelona.
They played Barcelona and almost won, which was crazy. It was the backbone of the Latvian national team during the height of our international glory, which was the Euro 2004, exactly 20 years ago. Feels like yesterday, where Latvia participated in the smaller European Championship, which was pretty cool. And still to date, the only team from the Baltics to do something like that. And Skonto Riga was the foundation of it. It was basically the best players all together, just playing and winning everything, in effect. There were some teams who challenged them, especially towards the later years, but eventually Skonto did go bankrupt because it was reliant on a single rich owner, and once their fortunes declined, so did the club. But maybe on the one hand, it is pretty cool to have this kind of a flagship team that can go further in European competitions and can compete, or at least be a little bit of a headache to such, flagships of international football like Barcelona. But now we have at least 3, more likely 3.5 teams actively and realistically competing for the title, and it's just so much more exciting. And I think the achievements further up in Europe will come with time, and we are especially very excited for this year. And of course, not to forget that 2 years ago, RFS, current champions, played in the Conference League group stage.
All right. Okay. So are they? Is the league still going on at the moment? Or is it?
It's a summer league.
Okay. Right.
It's a summer league. We're actually just hit halfway through the season. So the league starts in March, and it completes in November.
That's interesting. Very interesting. And there is one team from Riga, but it's not Skonto Riga, and we have something in common with this club, don't we? But we have FC Buffer, and there's a Mr. Dubov, and he owns Riga, but it's not Skonto, is it? It's a different Riga. Am I correct?
It's just Riga. It's just Riga FC, which was founded in 2014, and it shares an owner with one of your clubs.
Yeah. So how are they getting
Latvia?
On?
Yeah. Well, the club is doing fine. The owner is persona non grata in Latvia, so there's that. Make of it what you will. Riga FC is one of, well, first off, it's the most valuable team in the Baltics as per transfer market value. It's by far the most valuable in the Baltics. It's somewhat more valuable than RFS, or the close second. The team as such, it's definitely the closest thing we have to a grand team, in the sense that they did take up some of the Skonto legacy. They play at the Skonto Stadium, which is the best football stadium in Latvia still, although it does need to be either renovated or knocked down and rebuilt, but that's a different conversation. They won three leagues back from, I think, 2018, 19, and 2020, I believe. So 3 back-to-back titles, none since, and they won, I believe, 2 Latvian Cups. They've never participated in a major European competition, although they almost qualified for Europa League at one point. And they are the big spenders on the local transfer market. for sure. They and with the collaboration with you guys, as well as some other clubs that are within the general ownership family, they are able to attract players that other clubs are either unable or unwilling to attract to our league.
I find it interesting how I've just looked at the Riga squad, and you have a couple of players from Nigeria, you have a couple of players from South America, you have players from Eastern Europe, etc. And there's a lot of Latvian players, but Buffon, they hardly play Cypriot players. I think only this summer they're really going aggressive with signing Cypriot players, and that's only because the rules have changed a little bit. So in terms of the rules in Latvia, is there a quota that you need to play a certain amount of Latvian players in the first team or have them in the squad?
Yes. And Cyprus is known for being a foreigner-heavy league, even down the pyramid, because there were some Latvians playing in the Cypriot second division. It's not that many locals there. In Latvia, half of your squad must be Latvian to begin with.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And then on the field, at any point, there has to be at least 3 Latvian players, no matter what. Often goalkeepers are one of those players, and then you have 2 field players, and that is also the model with Riga. But the players they have are genuinely good. They have national team, striker, central defender, and right back, as well as a left winger who's a youngster just being called up. They have a few other promising ones that are just up and coming and only got their first call up these days. So it's not just just for the click, in essence. But yeah, no, and most Latvian squads are like that. Riga and RFS, they are foreigner heavy, and they kind of tend to play around this minimal quota. You will not find more than 3 Latvian players on the squad in big games. And in Europe, sometimes that drops even below where this requirement doesn't apply. But the rest of the teams, they are genuinely, predominantly local. And they develop talent. And this is how our kind of reputation of the youngest pro league in Europe proliferates, because, on the one hand, the regulations facilitate this. On the other hand, there's financial considerations that come with getting foreign players. For example, we have this thing in Virsliga where for each foreign player, you have to pay a certain fee into the foreign player fund. And the more foreign players you have, the greater that fee becomes. Essentially, it cascades up. And then this fund is used to support teams that have no foreign players or a very small proportion. So then essentially you have a structure where, okay, if you have lots of money and you want to try to be competitive in Europe, yeah, you can ship in a bunch of players. You're going to need to pay for it. It's going to cost you. But then that money can go into some smaller regional team that maybe is just happy to be in like 7th, 6th, 8th place in the league, wants to develop local talent, and then they can draw on that fund as well. And it's not a small fund either. It's at least by local comparisons, it's I think last year it was almost like €250,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is this something that's been going on for a while, or since the money's come in from various clubs?
This is relatively new. And relatively, I say, because Virsliga reset the format, I think, around 2014 or so. It's not run by the FA anymore. Virsliga is kind of, in a sense, like the Premier League, a breakaway product. The clubs were not satisfied with how FA handled the business, so they split off and they essentially said, well, we're going to do it ourselves on a license from you guys. And it's all 10 clubs being the share and stakeholders in the competition as such. And so then they agree on these mechanisms, such as this fund.
That is incredible. That's brilliant. I think that is how it should be done. You guys have found a way of doing something that the big leagues should be doing anyway, if not to put the money back into the clubs in the same league, but surely the ones in the leagues below. So that is an incredible incentive for sure. So when we talk about youth and development, is there maybe one or two clubs that are known for developing top talent?
Yeah, absolutely. So Meta, the one that I mentioned, having the youngest squad in Europe a couple of years back, is one of the largest academies. And it's Meta with two T's. Once Virsliga got licensed for Football Manager, I think it was also a couple of years ago, many people took it upon themselves to win the Champions League with the squad, and it was a fun challenge going on. With I remember some guys being like, "Well, I'm gonna try to do this, and I'm only gonna use my scout suggestions or something to that effect." So that was great fun, and it is a great academy. Some of our most prolific international players, like Robert Dmitrijs, who played until just now for Dutch Cambuur. Raimond Scrolles, who was purchased by Spezia in Serie A just before they tumbled down the pyramid. They all come from that academy. Another big school, I think, at least of the clubs that are in Virsliga at the moment, is the Daugavpils school. So Daugavpils is a city to the northeast of Riga, close to the Belarusian border. And even though second largest city in the country, it's a little bit, let's say, not the most attractive destination for tourists, international or local, because of many different issues. But it is on the up and up, and their football academy is fantastic. They seem to have a great scouting capacity, because people like I don't remember his first name, but a player named Ofor, who went to MLS a few years back, he was scouted by them. Some other ones, in essence, these are the big schools. And then there's a couple other ones that maybe are a little bit more regional or are no longer in the Virsliga, like the Supernova, who played last year. They have one of the largest academies, and it's very likely they'll be back to Virsliga next season.
Superb. Absolutely brilliant. So if you want to talk about the league itself and the players, which would you say are the standout players? Are there any young up-and-coming talent that you think that, okay, they can step up and maybe go to MLS like the gentleman that you mentioned before? Stuff like that.
Yeah, we had this conversation early in the season during the game. We met with the president of the Virsliga just randomly during the match, and my co-host Frank. Yeah, it's all very open. That's another thing, because okay, maybe let's take a little segue. It's an important thing to note that in Latvia, football is, even though by youngster participation, number one sport, by popular opinion, is pretty not loved, which is bizarre. But our national sport is ice hockey, and second national sport is basketball. And then for some reason, football, well, okay, there are many reasons, but for all of those reasons that we don't need to go into, football kind of has a bit of a bad rep. And so our attendances are not super high either. Like, yes, we have these big Riga derbies between the two main teams, RFS and Riga, that do sell out our biggest stadium, but that's only like 6,000 people. But average attendance of the league is well under 1,000. So because of that, it's a really small-ish community where people tend to know one another if you spend any time there. And we have been very warmly received when we started this project by this community. So, but yeah, in essence, you can go to a game, you can bump into the national team coach, have a chat if you speak any Italian. You can meet the president of the Virsliga, no problem, and everyone tends to be open and friendly. So yeah, so it wasn't anything fancy. It was just he was standing there. We know each other from doing the podcast before, and we had this chat about, hey, who is my co-host Frank asked him, who is our superstar player in the league this year? And then we all, the three of us, had a long and hard think, and we couldn't find one, which maybe isn't necessarily the worst thing, because that kind of then, okay, you don't have this one player like Ronaldo used to be when he just moved to Saudi Arabia, or kind of like what Messi is trying to be with the MLS these days. But there's a whole bunch of players that are good, none of whom are outstanding, like poster boy players. So I wouldn't be able to name that. Maybe Milos Jojic for Riga FC, who is a Bundesliga veteran, could qualify for something like that. But let's say he's not having the most impactful season this year, and it might be a time to retire soon or move somewhere else, because the Virsliga level is deceptively, it's higher than it looks. In terms of youngsters who are coming up, yeah, there's a few. Adam Markiev, who is a Finnish U21 captain, a defensive midfielder, nice and quick, kind of a holding midfielder. He's definitely going places. The guy is magic. Then another youngster arrived last year but was injured and only started playing this year, Traore, who is now on loan at Daugavpils. Guy is brilliant. We have some youngsters from Latvia, such as Eduards Dashkevich, who is a left wing for Riga FC. And I think he was in Anderlecht Academy before or something like that. Once he is able to aim his crosses at someone where they're supposed to go, he'll be just so much better. Right now, he's very quick, technical, just ripping up in most games the right flank of their position. I don't know. There's many. Who else could we name? Yeah, I'll let you know if something pops up.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's great to hear about these players. And you mentioned the lad at Riga, the left winger that had the spell at Anderlecht. There'll be people watching thinking, how did a player from Latvia end up in Belgium? But it happens. We have players, Cypriot players that were in Arsenal's academy. So it's not. It's not a weird thing, but for people that don't understand football outside of the big leagues, well, of course, it's going to be alien to them. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are producing talent and you got players that have applied their trade at youth level in bigger leagues. That's fantastic. So,
and you'll see more of that, because obviously we didn't have this opportunity because of the occupation years, but right now, Italian Serie C and D is just overflowing with Latvian youngsters. It's like almost every couple of months I see news that some academy player was signed by some Serie D club or whatever. And so this is, in 10 years' time, there's going to be a ton of players with international, at least academy experience, possibly even like a major league, second division experience as well. And it's just, you need a bit of time to kind of catch up, because we didn't have this opportunity. Our neighbors in the region didn't have this opportunity because of the Soviet occupation. And, it takes a bit of time to get there and catch up with it.
The Italians are sneaky, They're sneaky because...
Yeah, I saw the game.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, in the sense that we've had a lot of, I'd say maybe 6 or 7 Cypriot players have left their clubs from the under-19s to go to the Primavera. And this came out of the blue. So we're thinking, where do these scouts come from? Because we never hear of Italian scouts at games. So how did they find out about these players? So I'm assuming it's a similar system to what you guys have. Maybe they have agents that advise them, or maybe they have members of staff that work on behalf of I don't know how it works. But when you see a random Cypriot youngster saying, "Oh, they're just about to join Genoa," where did this come from? It's incredible.
I think it's agents. I tend to see these news from we have a couple of major agencies, by regional standards, and they're the ones always breaking these news. So I think it's agents. I think back when the national team was managed by a Brit, many people went to the UK to play in Premier League and the Championship. In the early 2000s, we had Marian Spahars, now a Southampton legend. We had Marius Verpakovskis playing for Dynamo Kiev, scoring against Real Madrid in the Champions League, and but and there was this very obvious push that you have a British specialist, and then maybe through their networks they're kind of highlighting these players. Now we have an Italian specialist, and we already have this pipeline into Italy. So I'm kind of curious if he keeps hold of his seat, which is an open question given recent results, 1-1 with Cyprus being among them. Whether we'll see even more players going to Italy.
Does this excite the supporters then, seeing a lot of these youngsters going to Italy? Because you mentioned these names like Marin Pahars, etc., who've done extremely well in the big leagues, and obviously, I'm assuming that he's the main. Would you say that he's the biggest name to have? I don't know.
He's
the biggest Latvian one-off?
He's one of.
Yeah?
He's maybe one of 3 or 4. Yeah.
Right. So with us Cypriots, I can't think of many where I can tell. I say, yeah, this guy went abroad and he did remarkably well. We're not going to have a Marin Pahars, not at this rate anyway. I mean, the closest thing I can think of is Bitta, who's at AIK right now, and that's because he's doing well. And people are going to say, oh, yeah, but there's this one, and there's, okay, Oka, you can say he did the right, but we don't have a Marin Pahars. So when we do see young players going to Sassuolo or Genoa or Sampdoria or even Sporting Kansas, it excites us. So what was it like for you guys? Is it, we know we're good. We know we're good. We know our players are good. Or is it, now this is an opportunity?
Yeah, no, I think this is one thing that we are lacking. Because I think we are good. We're not exceptional, but we're better than our results of the last decade suggest. The Latvian national team is like 140 whatever ranked by FIFA these days, which should be a national embarrassment if nationally we cared for football. But I think it's the psychological aspect of that. We can actually compete on this level that is missing. So no, it's definitely not that we're good. So it's not a big deal. I'm excited seeing these announcements, but I think it's also important to be realistic and understand that a lot of these lower league, even in the big countries, academies, they're a little bit like meat factories. They take players in wholesale. Then if you make it, maybe you make it further. More often than not, it's a great way to kill your career as a youngster. So I think there's cautious optimism overall, in the sense that, yeah, it's good, but we are yet to see someone who would go there and then kind of work their way up the leagues to become, well, not a superstar, but a good, solid, internationally competitive player. And part of that is because there just hasn't elapsed enough time for someone to do so. But so it's a little bit, there's a little bit of suspicion that goes with these transfers. Some of the players we never see again. Others, well, there was this one player, Daniel Ontujans, and he still is. He didn't go anywhere, but he was like a big deal in the, I think, Bayern Munich academy. Last year played for RFS, showed absolutely nothing, and is now back to Germany in like 3rd league or something like that. So, not the best example.
I can kind of relate to this because in Cyprus you do see certain players, I'm not going to mention any names, certain players moving to this club and then that club, and you're thinking they're not that good. So how do they keep getting moves to these clubs? And then you see who their agent is and you just connect the dots. Yep. You just connect the dots. Yep. It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what makes someone good is a little bit circumstantial anyway. And there's a healthy bit of luck involved, like with the case with Raimons Krolis, who was captain of the champions team, Valmiera, that year. Top scorer in the league, big transfer to Spezia in Serie A for like 2.5 million euros. Completely incredible. Guy is like 22 years old or something. Also a Meta Academy product. And then he played like maybe half an hour overall in Serie A. Spezia got relegated. Didn't play basically at all in Serie B. I don't know what happens with Spezia now. It kind of seems like they might be up for relegation to Serie C at this point. Got loaned out to a second division Czech club, did pretty well there, and it seems like now he's going to get loaned out to a Swedish second division club of some kind. So fantastic talent, possibly best talent of his generation of strikers. But did he maybe go a bit too fast over there? Or did he just get unlucky? I mean, I don't think he's not good enough, but so, there's situations like that as well. Someone who is absolutely crushing it, maybe going to a foreign country, maybe there's a little bit of adaptation issues, language barriers, different expectations, and it can break players. Because listening to his interviews when he went, and listening to his interviews kind of now, you kind of feel sorry for the guy. He's just a kid,
Yeah, this is it. We have a player, Lois, who plays for my team, Ormonia, and he went on loan to Heerenveen in January, and he didn't do anything. He played a few minutes here and there, but he didn't do anything. And you look at that, you're thinking he's one of our most talented players, and he couldn't do it out there. But then you're thinking, well, is it because he wasn't good enough, or was it the coach didn't have faith in him? Did he struggle to get used to, as you mentioned, the language, the culture? It could be loads of things. Or it just might be that the coach didn't want him because it was an agent that knows the president that brought him in. So the player doesn't have a fair opportunity because of the politics that go on. So it could be the same with this player,
Yeah. I mean, it's just also the human thing that youngsters who go to university at like 19 or something, sometimes even if it's a different city in the same country, that people can't cope with that. They go home.
Yeah.
Here we're talking about something completely different world. It's hyper competitive, very physical. It's just you need to hit the ground running. And if you don't for some reason, then you're benched, and that doesn't help anything either. So but that gets a little sad. Hopefully we'll get some players who can punch through, who can get lucky. And the more numbers you have, the luckier you get, and then we'll get some kind of rising stars, maybe from abroad, but also from Virsliga, because Virsliga is hugely competitive. There's this recurrent theme of foreign coaches coming in, the most prolific one being Torsten Fink, who was managing Riga for half a year, a couple of years back.
Wow. He was at Apoel for a bit.
I mean, okay. He's jumping around now. I think he's now in Genk or something.
He's got a good agent. He's got a good agent.
Or a bad one. Depends. But yeah, so he came, and he's not to single him out, but he just as an archetype of these high-profile foreign coaches who come, as well as players, to be honest, who come and they think like, what's the big deal? It's Latvian football. There's like no proper stadiums. There's no fans. It's like there's artificial pitches half the time. It's not going to be a big deal. I can just play with one leg or manage with one hand. And they get burned very quickly and very hard. And then they get sacked. They leave. Just now we had a very promising specialist from Portugal, Filipe Almeida, who came in to manage Auda, which is like a bottom of the top half of the table team. He previously worked at Fenerbahce as an assistant coach, and he's gone as of a couple of weeks ago. Just couldn't cope with the level of the league because it's higher than it seems. And so we can also raise very competitive youngsters, maybe if they stay a little bit longer here and play in some lower end team, but they play against like Riga and RFS and Valmiera and these big teams that do play internationally competitive football.
Would you say club presidents are a little bit trigger happy then? Because you mentioned...
It depends on which club.
Right, okay. Say no more.
Yeah,
actually, tell me, honestly.
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
So we have let's say the four top teams at the moment are RFS, Riga, Valmiera, and Auda. So let's say that. and that's certainly how they almost are in the league table. So Riga owners you are familiar with, they are also Auda owners. So they own
That I
directly
didn't know.
or indirectly. It's a little bit of a kind of a roundabout way, but in
Yeah,
essence,
they
Auda
work
is
around it. Okay.
yeah, but and in the case with Auda a little bit more, but in essence, the story there is that Auda is an old historical club in Latvia, and then it got promoted to the Virsliga, and you need to raise some extra capital to be able to compete. And so the way they raised extra capital was, well, it's not really announced, but if you put 2 plus 2 together, they sold the controlling stake to whoever owns, locally Riga FC. And so there's player swaps, there's player rotation. I think they probably have most of the same backroom stuff. It's they Auda plays at all the Riga facilities and trains. It's there was a joke that it's Riga B, basically, in many ways. So
Yep.
so 2 of 4 clubs are owned by people who are very trigger happy, who want results now, who are willing to throw money at problems, who are not really interested in long-term growth and development. They're also not super interested in local talent. They want to have clubs that are in Europe and competitive, and they're going to spend millions every year, literally, on transfers to both coaches and players, and try to kind of, make it happen. So that's half. Third club, Valmiera, is a youth development based model, but it is owned by, let's say, the closest thing to venture capital that you can probably have in this region. So it's owned by a Swiss diamond something company that's a little bit hard to pin down. And when I tried to actually find out who they were, I couldn't, you basically hit a wall of these companies that have a generic name, no websites, no really record, are registered in Dubai free trading zones. You can't really get anywhere. So like that. And their model seems to be that we're gonna get local youngsters, we're gonna get foreign youngsters, we're gonna get them good, and then we're gonna sell them all at once, which is what happened once they won the championship. And this is kind of what's going to be happening now. And also, we're not going to pay any taxes until we absolutely are forced to. And so, because of that, Valmiera this year was docked already 3 points and kicked out of denied UEFA license on this basis as well. So, but when it works, and they did sell a lot of players. Daisuke Yokota, who is now in Ghent, is one of such players. Krolis, aforementioned, is another one. There's a bunch of players in Poland. They also have a multi-club ownership model with Lech Gdansk. So many players go there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's number 2 type, and then RFS, the third type, is a club that is not focused on youth development. It is focused on long-term sustainable growth. Their team barely changes year on year. They're owned by a local major construction company who have been investing and supporting the development of this organization throughout many years, building just now, like literally last week, a new main stand Category 2 UEFA stadium opened, which they built with private funds, which is pretty much the only privately owned stadium in Latvia, other than Skonto, but Skonto has just as shady ownership as Riga FC, so we can't fully count that. But so you have this domestic club supported by a large domestic business, and they are kind of going step by step, not really making loud transfers. They do sell things well. They sold Andrei Illich, who is now in Lille in France. They sold Darko Lemaic to Ghent a few years back. Who else was of the big ones? Well, in essence, they tend to average probably about 1 million in outgoing transfers per year. So it's this very kind of a slow, let's do things properly, step by step, and it's now paying off. They won 2 leagues in the last 3 years. They have played in Latvian Cup final every year for like the last 5 years, winning twice. and they are the only team from Latvia to play in the Conference League group stage, as well as only second team to play in a group stage of a European competition ever. And I mean, it works. I like them.
What's the population of Latvia, if you don't mind me asking?
Of course not. You can Google it. it's about 1.7 million.
1.7. That's incredible. To be selling players for €1 million.
Yeah.
For I mean, Cyprus is just over 1 million, and we're not selling players for that amount, or we sold one, but not consistently. So for you guys to be selling players at that value, you're doing something right.
We are extremely successful. Last year, or maybe earlier this year, I don't fully remember anymore, the FIFA World Transfer Market report came out, or something like that, which ranks all the associations on transfer activity. And so for Latvia, the numbers were 6 million, and this is for a year. So this was for 2023. 6 million in purchased players, so incoming transfers, and 9 million in outgoing transfers. Now, it doesn't have a breakdown. It doesn't have a breakdown, but Riga FC doesn't do outgoing transfers, really. So I think if you were to filter Riga FC out as the big spenders on the incoming transfer market, it would be maybe like closer to like 3 and 9, or maybe even 2 and 9.
Right.
So we are very good at youth development and sales, and we are getting better. Most of these are international players, but given enough time, local players will also be part of this number.
Incredible. So going back to Riga briefly, have they got state-of-the-art facilities? Because I know Buffer, they've really done well with the training ground. I think the new stadium, they're going to redevelop it. Obviously, the player signings and everything, social media, marketing, everything is probably the best in Cyprus, I think, anyway. I'm not going to say that too loud because the Addis fans are watching me, and I like Addis as well. I like what they're doing, branding, etc. So would you say Riga have got a similar kind of style to Buffer, or is it, they're going to build the team facilities and then move it on from there?
No, I would not say that. Although they're close. So they inhabit the legendary Skonto Stadium, which, as I mentioned, does need major renovations or rebuilds. But with what they have, they've done a tremendous job of updating it. It has digital turnstiles. It has a large digital display now. I think last June they laid a fancy hybrid pitch that still looks good, I suppose. So they've invested a lot into Skonto. Skonto comes with an indoor hall next to it. They laid a brand new cork-based artificial pitch there as well. Probably doesn't really mean a lot to you guys, since it's not an issue, I would imagine, in Southern Europe. But we play half a season on artificial grass because of the weather.
It's the weather, yeah. Well, you said ice hockey is the major sport, so I'm assuming it's cold.
Yeah, it can be. Then they have a sport training facility kind of in the north of the city that also houses their futsal club and their women's teams, as well as their artificial pitch that is outdoors. That's the Mappa Park's Sports Village Stadium. And they're building another sports facility kind of to the west of Riga, which is supposed to, it's supposed to have included even a whole stadium there, a bunch of fields and such, but development sort of stalled a bit. There are fields there that people can train on, and they're very high quality pitches, and the national team trains there, but it's not really complete to not to how it's supposed to be. So they definitely have excellent facilities. The best facilities, I think, are with RFS and their development of this sports park. It's called the LNK Sports Park. It's in the southeast part of Riga, I suppose south would be more accurate, which they purchased a plot of land, and they're developing this huge facility that does include a stadium that's now UEFA Category 2 certified, which is very exciting for us because that means that qualification rounds 1 and 2, we can play there, don't need to go to Skonto. They have training facilities, artificial pitches, and they're still going to develop like a hotel plus indoor facilities in the coming years. So I think that RFS probably has better facilities than Riga, but it's a margin call, and maybe someone more knowledgeable would disagree with me. But I think the takeaway here is not necessarily who has better on what, but these still are the only 2 clubs in the whole Baltic region that even do this kind of stuff. No clubs in Lithuania or Estonia are even close to developing their own training facilities of anywhere near this level of quality. And I think this rivalry between RFS and Riga is certainly playing a part in that, because I don't know what's the behind the scenes on the presidential level, but you can feel it, because once the LNK got finished with this new stand, which they built basically in half a year, which is incredibly impressive, but they are a construction company after all, then suddenly construction works resumed at this natural grass Riga facility to the west of Riga. So there's a little bit of, if you do this, I can do that, but better sort of an attitude, which is good for our football development.
It's competitive. Of course.
Exactly. we don't care if it's petty, as long as we get better infrastructure and players.
There's nothing wrong with being petty so long as you get the upper hand. That's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. That's just me. Dmitrijs, I've got one more question before I let you go, because I appreciate your time, and it's getting a bit late where you are, even though it's still not dark. It's incredible.
That's what you get in Northern Europe. We're now a few days away from Midsummer, and not the dodgy Swedish film, The Midsummer, but the real thing, which is the point of the year when it's the summer solstice. It's the shortest night, the longest day. So it's not really gonna get dark. We're gonna all light bonfires and keep the light through the night, through these couple of hours, already on Sunday, and drink beer and jump the fire.
I tell you what, I remember getting a train from Tallinn to Moscow in 2008. It was end of May, and it was sunny at 10 o'clock at night. I thought, I say 10 o'clock at night, 10 p.m. I'm looking at, where am I? What's happening? But it was great. It was great. Absolutely great. Anyway, irrelevant story. I just wanted to throw it in. Look, one more question. And this is based on the league, the sport as a whole. In Cyprus, there's something that we say, this is Cyprus. Anything that is unexplainable, your reason is, this is Cyprus. Whether it be someone that's parked strangely, whether it be various things. And in football, again, similar sort of thing. This season, we had away fans banned because of crowd trouble. We've had various things going on in our league. In fact, one game was cancelled because the match doctor thought the game kicked off an hour later. And because there wasn't a match doctor, they had to cancel the game. The away team got the points. And we just say, this is Cyprus. Is there anything that you can talk about the league, any incidents, anything that makes you think, I love our league, even though there's so much stupidness going on? Are there any incidents?
Yeah. Well, our league is actually extremely well run, because it's not an AFA run league, I think. It's run by the clubs, and so it's a lot more commercial than let's say an average league would be. They don't get a lot of funds from the football association, so they have to hustle it for themselves. And we had an episode with the head of the Virsliga, Maxim Skrivonets, and where he talks about how they actually capitalize on selling data to fund the league. So in essence, it's almost like a digital startup rather than a traditional league. Of course, there are things that are a little bit funny a lot of the time, but we don't really have incidents like that anymore. I think our biggest kind of like, oh, well, this is Latvia moment is more to do with the attitude towards football as such, and especially in relation to ice hockey. That yes, Latvia is fantastic at ice hockey, and it's in the elite level and has been for ages. And we won bronze medals last year at the World Cup. But, World Cup in ice hockey takes place every year, and there's only 20 teams playing. How many teams play on top level in football? Even on the European Championship, there's way more. How many countries play football competitively worldwide? Basically all of them. Hockey, 60? I don't know. So nowhere near, right? And still somehow when our national team or one of our clubs wins or loses to someone who is way higher in terms of ranking, quality, transfer market value for team, everyone's like, football is crap, close it down. And I'm not going to exaggerate, but some of these examples include we should just fire everyone, wait for 5 years, and then start fresh because it's just not working. It's horrible. It's useless. It's it's corrupt. It's all match fixing. It's just complete nonsense like that. And then if an ice hockey team happens to barely win someone like Poland, who are significantly below our level, then it's all like, oh, great job, guys, and it's the real man's sport kind of a thing. So there's for us that is this is Latvia moment when the ice hockey team won bronze last year. It was fantastic. We were all behind it. They proclaimed a public holiday 3 minutes to midnight for the next day. The parliament got together, or whoever was there, and they in this emergency meeting they said tomorrow is public holiday. Super confusing because most people were asleep by that point already. So there was that. And now so what was it? The 3-on-3 basketball guys won gold at the Olympics. Where is their public holiday? No.
Yeah. The favoritism on that particular sport.
Latvia won bronze in the Baltic Cup, which is the oldest international competition still running. Whereas where is our public holiday? So there's a little bit of that. So and this is we're all obviously very happy for all achievements of our country and our athletes, but just this I don't know, this animosity towards football. And again, we are the only Baltic state to have played in a Euro competition. In 2004, we drew with Germany. We we didn't win anyone really, but I mean, a draw with Germany of Oliver Kahn era. That's impressive. The way we got there was just
we'd give anything. We'd give anything for a win, let alone to be in a competition.
Yeah, and then suddenly this it's just this general public animosity towards football and complete lack of understanding or desire to learn. That is this is Latvia moment, and it's very unfortunate and can be very frustrating, but kind of try to take it with humor and stride and show with accomplishments rather than with words, as it were.
Well, look, it's good that the Latvian Football Podcast is around to educate people on the league and increase the awareness and hopefully get more eyes on the league, and then people will take it more serious.
Yeah. If someone from abroad has to tell you that, hey, what you do here is fantastic, for you to believe it, well, so be it.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. This is your Twitter account, I believe, at LV Football _show. When do you record? Is it weekly, monthly?
We record monthly, and we just released our latest episode. So this is our Twitter account. We also have an Instagram account, and this year we're trying YouTube. Editing video is a pain. I can attest to that. So our video versions drop later than audio, but the latest audio episode is available anywhere and everywhere you listen to podcasts. So check it out, and come see for yourself. It's really good.
For sure. Well, look, you need to
the
send
football,
me.
not the podcast.
It is. No, I'm sure the podcast is great as well. You need to send me the YouTube link so I can subscribe, and you need to send me the Instagram as well so we can follow you as well. We could be buddies. You know.
Yeah, just search for Latvian Football Podcast. It will take you there.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, there you go, Dmitrijs. Appreciate your time, boys and girls. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget, we're on Instagram and X at This Is Mappa. We also have a website, www.nc-network.com. And we'll be back very, very soon. So until next time, adios.